What is a powerful conversation? And how do you handle those powerful conversations? I'm Linda Katz-Wilner, founder and CEO of Successfully Speaking, and I help leaders and aspiring leaders communicate with confidence, clarity, and credibility. I am so looking forward to interviewing a special colleague and friend. Susan Seber and I have collaborated over the years. When she first brought me into AstraZeneca almost 8 years ago, Susan, to consult with her international team. Susan was the chief of staff for C-suite level individuals, so she certainly knows a lot about leaders. From that point, we formed a professional and personal friendship where we continue to learn from each other and engage in our own powerful conversations. Susan's career has evolved, and I'll let her tell you about that. Welcome, Susan.
Thanks, Linda. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, I'm excited about asking you about these questions. And let's start, Susan. Tell us a little bit about your background when you began and how it's evolved, because I know you describe yourself as a nerd leadership coach of your company, Purpose Zone Leadership. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, thanks. It's a great place to start. So Linda, I'm a bit of a unicorn coach in that my background's very technical and left brain. And so I was started my career in engineering, and I spent my years in industry before I did my pivot over to coaching. And so my background, I've led large engineering departments, and as you mentioned, I was a chief of staff for AstraZeneca, and so I bring a lot of the science aspect to coaching. So that's a little bit about me. I got involved in coaching when I really saw what it could do for people. So that's what made me want to say, I want to be able to do that for others. So that's a little bit about my background.
And I love that it is unique. Like you said, you are a unicorn because it's great. There are so many leadership coaches, and it's nice to see the diversity of skill sets that bring people to that. Now, we're talking about powerful conversations, and I already mentioned it. How would you describe what is a powerful conversation?
So, Linda, what I'll say is that powerful conversations have been around since the start of time. And you might be more familiar with some of the terms difficult conversations or tough conversations or crucial conversations. I like to approach these from a positive mindset so that people lean in more to get better success. And so there's three aspects of powerful conversations that help define them. First of all, it's individuals having different opinions. And so these are viewpoints, and it's something important to them. So there's a lot of feelings, there's strong emotions tied to them. And then usually there are high stakes. So again, they matter. So it could be personally, it could be professionally, it could be emotionally, but there's something that are powerful for us.
And what may be powerful, you may think it's powerful and the other person may not, but it's also how you feel going into that conversation, I'm assuming.
That's right. That's right.
And why are powerful conversations an important topic or an important area to address in today's times? And I think I have some ideas what you're going to say, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, you and I have done a lot of work in this space. So, Linda, when I think about the term VUCA, which everyone is familiar with, it was coined, I think it was through Harvard Business Review back in the 80s. And it's never been more relevant than today's time. So, the volatile, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity, this is a norm for today's time. We have, I think it's this year, we're going to have 5 generations in the workforce. So Gen Z is getting ready to surpass the boomers. And each of these generations, they bring a wonderful positive diversity to the table, but also with that, we each have different experiences and different perspectives that we need to navigate through. So, these result in powerful conversations a lot of the times.
Well,
Um,
what I'm hearing is there are powerful conversations because of the different generations in the workplace, but also the climate, the times that we're going through right now. I'm assuming that comes into play as well.
Linda, you're absolutely right. We are moving at speeds we've never moved before. And because we've got the technology and social media, we're always on. And the global aspect of things, it's 24/7.
Mhm.
More things are dividing our attention. And, again, from the global perspective, that equates to different cultures. And so change is the norm. And from a neurological standpoint, our brains like sameness. Our brains like structure. And so this is a different mindset and a different approach that we need to take. And again, powerful conversations are a key part of collaboration and what we need to do as a society.
Susan, could you give us some examples? What are some examples of powerful conversations?
Yeah. So, Linda, I'm going to give you two recent examples, very different examples. One of them is a client that I'm working with who is a professional in her field. She's got a lot of accomplishments, and she's way overdue for a promotion.
Mm.
And going through the data with her, she's been overlooked for a number of years. Her performance reviews are stellar, and this has been something that she's watching others be promoted and herself being held back. So that's one of them in terms of a powerful conversation and how to lean into this.
Mm-hmm.
And her approach has just been to not do anything.
To avoid it.
The other example I'll give you, this was last week. I was at my fitness club, and there was a woman who came into the class, and she is late every single class. And the instructor politely asked her to wait outside until it was an opportune time, and she absolutely exploded.
Oh my.
And it was obviously very distracting. The class shut down for a little bit until things got handled. So that was another powerful conversation that I'll give you. It's different, very different.
That sounds extremely powerful when people aren't necessarily in the workplace, and perhaps in the workplace, the stakes may be higher, so we're more careful. But here you are in a gym or fitness center, and people may not be thinking about how they're supposed to act. Well, what are some different ways that you can deal with those situations?
So, Linda, there's a lot of different ways you can handle them, and we see them every day. And I'll start off with the ways to try to avoid. And I'm going to go back to something called the amygdala hijack, when we get triggered with something. And for example, the woman that I just talked about, that was the fight mode. We're lashing out, arguing, trying to fight. I've paid money for this class and I deserve to be in it. And no listening. There's no listening skills and there's no other options. It's just, flat out. The other one is flight. And, so it's fight, flight, and freeze. And the flight one is really interesting because that's the one I see a lot of times with clients. And flighting is all about ignoring, avoiding, wanting to change the topic. And then the last one is freeze, where you can accommodate and be overly nice. You can dwell on it and just ruminate and, replay things. And ideally what we want to do, Linda, is lean in and deal with things head on. And often this isn't natural. So there's tricks associated with this that I work with clients on.
Well, tell me, of course, that was the teaser.
Okay.
What are some of those tricks?
So the first one goes back to something that is so easy and yet so hard. And what I call this is the power of the pause. Just
Mm,
taking a breath, taking a beat, and really thinking through things, noticing if you're agitated, noticing how you're being triggered, and how do you want to behave. The second one is planning the conversations.
mm,
And if you are going into a powerful conversation, consider, what do I really want? What does the data say? And it's also really important to rehearse and, model things to, because that will help you be better prepared in the actual conversation. The next one is be purposeful with considering a different perspective. I equate this to um, the tool of viewing things from the balcony.
mhm,
And when you're able to see things from the balcony and look down on the dance floor, you're able to take in more information and evaluate and be your best self. And along with that, having positive intent, thinking from the other's perspective and thinking from what uh, what is the what's positive from for your intent. That will be a From that you'll be able to open your hearts, open your minds, and have a deeper conversation. And the last one, Linda, I say, is be curious. And again,
mhm.
tapping into the power of the pause, being curious and listening deeply, asking questions. So help me understand your view on this. Help me understand what's important to you.
Mhm, mhm.
And Linda, we all have our stories, and our stories are our reality. So those are some of the tips and tricks I feel strongly about.
Well, that's fantastic because I know, just knowing you, Susan, one of the things I've always integrated into my conversations is assume good intentions,
Yes.
whether it's true or not. Just assume those good intentions. And the power of the pause is exactly what I teach on
Mm.
helping people, both with their listening skills or even some of the diversity conversations that I help people with. That pause is so powerful to let
And
us
it's hard. It's not easy, Linda, is it? At
no,
times.
and in certain situations, maybe better than others. So
Mhm.
let me ask you this. We're at the fitness center because that one fascinated me. That could
Okay.
happen a lot. And you're not there to coach the person who came late to the class, but perhaps the instructor came to you afterwards and said, "How should I have dealt with that?"
Mm. So what I would say is to take a pause with the class, and if it escalated to that point, take the pause and have the class wait, and then take the individual outside and not let it ramp up to the point that it did,
Mm.
where others were uncomfortable. Um, so that's what I would recommend.
And you know what that reminds me of, Susan? When I do a lot of coaching for public speaking, and
Mm,
some of the big questions are, number one, how do you deal with questions and answers? And how do you deal with a hostile person in the
mm,
audience? So what you're talking about is very similar to that. Don't bring too much attention in front of everybody,
yeah.
and don't get angry at that person because you may alienate some other people in the room by doing that.
That's right. And Linda, we don't know the backstories on
Mhm,
things. We
mhm,
don't know what people's histories are, or what they're coming to the table with, or we just don't know that.
mhm.
So, yeah, there's a way to kind of slow things down. We have something called mirror neurons, and whoever has the strongest energy will affect the others.
Mm,
So if the instructor brought a calmness to the situation and was trying to listen deeply, and that could have resulted in kind of a settling of
mhm,
emotions.
mhm. Maybe. Right,
Maybe. You're
but those
right.
these are just some
You're right.
skills in your toolkit to be aware of, and I think, to me, what I'm hearing is that power, the pause,
Yes.
happen early on, because
Yeah.
things can dissipate if you do that. And of course, listening, because that's a very important skill that I work with.
And Linda, one more thing with that
Mhm.
example. If the individual was coming to the class late over and over and over, it could have been an opportunity where the instructor caught her after the class and gave her an education on class etiquette and was curious about, why she was late
Mhm. Mhm.
and helped her before it got to that point. So that's another thing. Rather than avoid something,
That's a
deal with it
great
head on.
That's a great point, Susan, because I take some classes, exercise classes, and there's one where somebody is always late and it never seems to bother the instructor.
Mm,
I'm assuming she knows why that person's late. I mean, maybe that person has to get a child on a bus and the
You're
instructor
right.
said, come anyway. But the conversation probably happened, or the instructor doesn't care. But I don't think that would be the case. So
No.
it all comes down to the big word, conversations and listening.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the question I love to ask my guests, and that is, and we've alluded to many of them already, but what do you think is an essential skill that somebody should have so that they can speak, sound, look, act, think like a leader?
And I love this question, Linda. You have some big questions, and what I would say is it really comes down to emotional intelligence. And we, Linda, are a combination of our personality, our IQ, and our emotional intelligence. And the best leaders have the strongest emotional intelligence. And
Mhm.
emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness. And there's a formula. Okay, going back to my nerd side. And the more that you know about yourself and your tendencies, your triggers, the more choices you can have, the better decisions you can make, and the more success you can have.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's like a lens on the camera. And, the bigger you open up that lens on the camera, the more possibilities you have. So
mhm.
emotional intelligence.
So, okay, emotional intelligence and know yourself and be
That's
open.
right. The starting point of emotional intelligence is self-awareness.
Mhm, mhm, and how many people may not have that? I mean, there are
Yeah.
many people who just are not aware of their triggers.
Yeah.
I guess that's when you step on the landmines, when that happens.
And you know what? Emotional intelligence is something that you can always grow if you're willing, if you
I'm
lean
glad you
in
said
and you're
that.
willing.
I'm glad you said it. So it's not like your IQ,
No,
where you can't change that. This you can change as you become more aware.
correct. And it
Mhm,
never ends. You
mhm.
can always be more than what you were. So it's unlimited,
Isn't that
unlimited growth.
hopeful? That's very hopeful
Mm.
for everyone.
Yes.
Susan, how can people get in touch with you?
Linda, probably the easiest way is through LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So Susan Seber.
Oh,
And another way is through my website, my Purpose Zone Leadership website that um, people can access me through. So that's the
and
easiest way.
and we'll put that up at the end of the interview.
That sounds great.
Susan, I always love our powerful conversations, and they're not always about conflict. And I guess we should make that a point too, that
Yes.
conversations don't have to be about conflict. But I love the conversations. I love your expertise. And it's been wonderful every time we collaborate and every time we even have our conversations. So thank you so much for being part of this interview series.
Linda, it's been my pleasure and an honor to do this with you. So thank you.